Climate change is an ever-growing problem that our world has been facing for centuries and will continue to be faced with in future generations. While there are many different problems that have arisen from climate change, one specific problem that I address in this video is global warming and its effects on rising sea levels and the environment around us. Global sea levels have been rising over the past century, and the rate at which they have has only been increasing in recent decades. In the 1900s, the average rate at which sea levels were rising was fairly steady at about 0.06 inches per year. And then from 2006 to 2015, that rate more than doubled to 0.14 inches per year. And again, from 2018 to 2019, it nearly doubled again to 0.24 inches per year. Since 1880, the global average sea level has risen roughly 8 to 9 inches. To put that into perspective, over the last 2 years, it has risen almost half an inch. It took a century and a quarter for the sea level to rise 6 inches, and over the last 20 years alone, it has risen half that. So, what exactly is causing this rise in sea levels? First, let's jump back to global warming. Global warming is a gradual increase in Earth's temperatures generally due to greenhouse gases and pollution, which also increase the levels of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere and in turn trap a lot of the heat in our atmosphere that would escape otherwise. Now, let's break down what is causing this rise in sea levels. One of the main causes in our global sea levels rising is due to glaciers and ice sheets melting, which in itself is a result of global warming. The second main factor in our rising sea levels is as the oceans warm up, due to the heating up of our atmosphere, the water's volume expands, taking up more space than it did at the lower temperatures. Now, let's talk about how global warming is affecting the environment around us. The yearly rise in Earth's temperatures may not seem like a big deal to everyone, but it should be, as it has an effect on every person and every living organism's survival, whether they live on the coastline or not. We can see it in our glaciers melting and the Midwest freezing. We can see it in our forests burning and the once prosperous life along with it. We can see it in our reefs bleaching and our fish dying. We can see it in our farms flooding and our cities drowning. What more needs to happen before we decide this isn't just a problem that needs recognition, but it's a problem that needs affirmative action taken against it? If we continue along the path we're currently on, polluting as we have and living the lifestyles we do, the future fate of our planet is inevitable. And though some of the damage we've caused is irreversible, such as the extinction of various species of coral and other aquatic life, if we act soon enough, there's still time to alter the course of our planet's future. So, what specifically can we do to ensure a habitable future for our children and ourselves? Well, we could start by planting more trees. After the forest fires in Australia and the Amazon rainforest, we lost a significant amount of our atmosphere's CO2 filter. What I mean by this is, trees absorb huge quantities of carbon dioxide and exhaust it in the form of oxygen, which ultimately fights against the rising temperatures of our oceans and decreases pollutants in the air. The next thing that most of us could work on is our transportation habits. If you're like me, you drive a lot, and most of it is out of necessity. But according to the Environmental Protection Agency, fossil fuel transportation accounts for nearly 1/3 of the carbon emissions in our atmosphere. So it might be in all of our interests to stop driving as much. Well, someone might say, I need to drive for my job though, and I would respond with saying, but you don't need to be driving a Dodge Challenger. There are many different ways we can make our transportation habits more sustainable, such as ride sharing instead of ordering a private ride, avoiding rapid acceleration and braking, also turning on cruise control for long distance drives. And when you go to buy your next car, choose one that's environmentally friendly, like a Tesla. Another thing that most of us can do, and I say most because some of us already are, is cut down on our beef consumption. This is one of the easiest things we can do to make a significant difference today. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, emissions from animal agriculture account for nearly 15% of all human emission, and beef alone is responsible for 41% of that. A final adjustment we can push for globally is promoting the education of women. Now, hear me out on this one. Studies have shown that as women become more educated, they are less likely to have children, and this ultimately lowers the global carbon footprint. Well, in the US, this isn't really something that we should worry about because education is provided publicly and free to everyone, but in lesser developed countries, it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. In summation, our impact on the environment around us is atrocious. But it doesn't have to be. By taking into consideration what I've suggested we do and making a significant effort to adjust to those new lifestyles, we can rest assured our children and ourselves will have a planet to live on in years to come.